Session. All in favor? Aye. Aye. I was waiting for a second. I don't know what I was waiting for. All right, coming out of the executive session, we need a motion on this.
We have to have one to at least.
I'd make a motion, we go ahead and submit the information to payroll
Okay.
for the discussion in the executive session.
All right, we have a motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Scott, come on up.
Either way, we'll catch up on that. Sounds good. Scott Crowther, Event Director, Business Manager.
Randy Bybee.
Randy Bybee.
From Randy's Tumble.
Yeah. So the last few years we've done, Randy Stumbling has come to the complex and they have rented a pavilion and done the Lantern Festival, where these are the floating lanterns. For both Ernie and Jeff, I know you guys know that the first year I was a little bit skeptical about this, but it turned out to be a great event. People love it. You've got a lot of people that show up, and so we're requesting for them to be able to do that again this year. So, and I don't think it's a fee waiver request, it's just a use request, because they pay for the pavilion.
I have no heartburn. It's been a great event.
Yeah.
Commissioners?
Enjoys it.
Works for me. I'm fascinated with what they're doing, so, yeah.
Well, good, thank you.
And we appreciate it because they'll get out and clean it up. We don't notice any big difference to the complex, so it's great.
Okay.
That was always the question, so.
Yeah, my question, are these lanterns just gonna float, but they're not gonna lift?
No, they just float on the water.
Okay, I've
There's
always
no
wondered
top
about
on
what
them.
happens to those lanterns when they light them and they go off into the wild blue yonder,
You
whatever.
know, some of those, depends on which ones you buy. We don't have those, but if you want to float one in the
Oh.
sky, you can, if you order the ones that, they're like made out of rice paper and all the stuff that holds them up and floats them, it just disintegrates, so it's, yeah, it's biodegradable
Okay,
and
well,
stuff, so yeah.
I
Those
struggle
aren't
with
the
that.
ones we're doing.
I struggle with that because we would catch a field on fire. Biodegrade right in the field.
Right in the middle of a power line.
And the reason we don't do those ones also is because, so last year we tried to do the hot air balloon, which would have been great. We had a ton of people that, and one year maybe, hopefully that'll happen, but the wind was so windy, they couldn't even go up. So we spent money for them to come, but they couldn't even go up. So we're not doing that this year, but that's why I don't do the floating ones, because if you go up, you have to have no wind to let them off. Otherwise, they do blow, or, because we've floated some personally ourselves.
Okay.
And the fire to lift them catches the thing on fire before you can even get it up in the air. And so we want everyone to be successful at floating their lantern, and out on the lake they are.
Thank you for enlightenment.
So you're welcome.
Okay, I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we go ahead and approve this
Okay.
request.
We have a motion. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks for
Thank you, guys.
participating up there.
The next two contracts are really, it's the same event, just done on two different dates. So we could have, I guess, had one contract with all the dates on there, or just two separate contracts, but, so, go ahead, Ben.
I'm Ben Tibbetts with Triple T Productions.
So Ben runs the World Series of roping in August. That's a big date for us. He brings a lot of people. This year he's going to bring a second World Series date to us. So we're expecting to have quite a few folks. Last year we partnered with Ben's team to have them manage the stalls. So we let them run the stalls, and they ended up collecting the money, and then we split the revenue 50-50. What that ended up doing for us is, I think we collected more money even splitting it 50-50, because so many people, it's such a crazy event that people just throw horses in stalls. Our folks have a hard time tracking down stalls, so we end up having to do refunds because the wrong people in the wrong stalls. He's got a gentleman that works for him that is a bulldog, and he will collect money from whoever's got a horse in a stall. And so that is his job. He has a title. It's not very glamorous, but he is really good at what he does. And so there will be a few of our big roping events that we'll try to do the same type of thing. A couple with Chris's events in the future as well, Chris Freed's. So, but this worked out really well for us last year, and I'm looking forward to continuing that.
I think this is a great partnership, and I appreciate you coming up and using the facility and partnering with us. It's good for us. I hope it's as good for you
Yeah,
as it
it's
is
a
for
great
us.
location. People love coming here.
Good, thank you.
Use both those lower arenas?
Yeah, we usually have the indoor arena on reserve so that if the weather's bad, they're big enough events that we don't want to have to cancel one. We prefer if we can use the two outside arenas if the weather's good because it's faster and we can run more teams through, but it's nice to have a backup facility too that you know you're going to have the event no matter what.
Cool.
I'm curious on the numbers. How many people come in? I mean, it's good economically, that's what I say. That kind of information is really good to digest about how many people are coming in from out of town, driving their trucks and their horse trailers and
Right,
whatever.
a lot of these people are from out of town. Last year, the August event, we had 1,200 teams that
Okay.
competed in 2 days. That doesn't translate to people because people can enter more than one time. I would
Right.
say that it was probably, 300 to 400 contestants, but that, who knows how many they bring. There's been studies done by the AQHA about how many people come to horse events with them, and it's 4 people for every contestant. And I don't know that I believe that because that would be 1,600 people were there, and I don't think there was 1,600 people there, but I think that it's a good impact for the restaurants for sure, and for motels and, the community as a whole.
That's good information. Is there a way that you could get that summary to us at some point?
No,
Because
I can
people
get
are
you-
asking those kind of questions all the time.
I can
What's
get
the
you team
impact?
counts, and I can see if I can, on our software, if I can print like a roster of who competed, and then we would at least know the number of contestants that were there, and then we can make a maybe educated guess on how many people come.
Is there a
down.
way that you can do, like an evaluation, that have people self-report to you what they think about this, what we can improve, or whatever, so we can use this?
I don't know if we could do.
A survey of some sort of your
Yeah, you might be able to
contestants?
do that if you could get people to take the time to do it. Would be
Well, you can't always, but it would be interesting to hear from a few.
Always my favorite thing is filling them out.
Well, there are people who love to do that too,
Right.
but if they would
Right.
give us some of that feedback, we can use that
we
in so
get
many
some
places.
feedback, verbally from them there.
Okay.
People that say what they like, and hey, we like this change, and they've done this, and do you think you could get them to do that? And but there's not, it's not documented, I guess.
Okay,
There's a few numbers that we can throw at you. Like our RV park will fill up for his event. It's like high school rodeo. You just got to come up and see it. It's crazy how full the venue gets. It was 4 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, that we had a concert the same night as his event, and we had 1,000 people walk up to the concert after his event got over.
That was a great co-promotion.
Yeah, 1,000 people walked up to that. So we have another concert that'll be the Friday of Ben's August event, and just based off the partnership, he and I will talk, and he'll change the times on his event so that they can get out to go to the concert. He'll also do some co-promotion with us and market our concert through his marketing, and so it's hard to show the economic impact that it has on the city, but it's huge. The first time I went to one of these events, you've got kids walking around with cowboy hats and markers getting the top ropers in the world to autograph their hats because they're here. I don't even know another event where you'd have, the top basketball, football, whatever players right in the city. That's who we bring. That's who Ben brings to these events. I would definitely invite you to come up for one of those days just to see it, because the impact is to the community is huge.
Wonderful.
anything you could give us, either from
Sure.
your side or whatever, we can pass that on to so many other
Right.
folks in the county. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion, we go ahead and sign both these contracts for the ropings.
okay. Any further discussion?
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
Scott, did you want to talk concert stuff? Or did you want
Am I in
to?
there for that?
Yeah, it is. It is if you want to.
I'm not sure what we're talking about.
Concert tickets?
Tickets,
Oh, yes, yeah, let's talk about concert tickets. So over the last few years, we've, and this is tickets for our elected officials, right? So a few years ago, we gave out 4 tickets per elected official. Before that, the year before that, it was a suite that we had that we would, I think the original agreement was out of that 10 or 20 person suite that I would give out some of the tickets and then the rest would come down to the commission office and you guys would dole them out. We did have a legal review of the tickets because it is our venue. There is not a cost associated with the ticket. And so even though the show might cost money, the ticket is actually free because it's our venue. So it's not a gift to an elected official. And a lot of those tickets get sent out to employees in the county. So from my standpoint, when we first started to do this, the box suites is the easiest for us to do. When we're looking at a show, we get the venue gets roughly 10% of the total number of tickets that we could use as a comp. Actually, it's 1%, so it's 100 tickets for a 10,000 seat venue. And out of those 100 tickets, a lot of those go out to radio stations, go out to sponsors that we have that may have tickets as part of a sponsorship package. Because once that ticket counter gets down, then essentially we start paying for those tickets. We have to take them out of the revenue that comes in from the ticket sales. It just takes that number down. And so we've tried to use areas, I would prefer to use areas that are non-manifested like the box suites, because we're going to reserve box suites. We have 2 fairly good-sized suites that we keep side by side that we tend to hold. We can use them as ADA overflow, as you know. We just hold those for a couple different reasons. The past couple years, there hasn't been a huge need or a huge want for the boxes, but this year there's a big desire for boxes. I would prefer to put our elected official tickets in the boxes rather than in manifested seats, because it's hard for me to, those seats are worth more to give out. And honestly, if I'm going to give out some to some radio listeners or whatever, giving out a couple of GA tickets or a couple of seats in the back is not as prestigious as I think the boxes are. Just a nicer experience. And so if we're going to send employees, if we're going to be giving them out to people that we work with or that we interact with, I'd prefer to give them a good experience. And I think that it's a better solution. Now, the difference there is if you go 9 elected officials and 4 tickets each, that number can climb up there a little bit. You're looking at 36 tickets, where a box it might be 20 tickets. So it may be a little more sharing. So.
Good, thoughts?
I've talked to the elected officials, made phone calls this morning, and all of them said they would rather be out and have the 4 seats.
4 seats out in the, does that cause you more grief?
So I'll give you one example. We have a show, one of our shows where the artist, their management team, they'll do artist holds. And they took up nearly 75% of all of our seated tickets in their holds. And so then you look at, like, we only have 25 seated or 25% of our seated tickets to be sold, because they're putting holds for record labels or VIPs, or it's a crazy thing. They have the ability to request that. So then when we try to pick tickets to put in or people to put in different areas, it just gets harder for us. And then eventually it'll come out of our bottom line, because if you look at a third of those tickets, that's a third of that we can comp out typically. So.
Well, like when we first started talking about this, I'm talking to the elected officials, having all the elected officials together at every concert, they don't want to do that. We'd end up talking business instead of enjoying a concert. Another discussion, and some people have family situations where they need that extra ticket. So even if it comes out of our bottom line and stuff, I like giving the elected officials the 4 tickets.
And I agree with that, but I also agree with the ease and whatever, that it would be easier just to shove them in a suite. But it doesn't make any difference to me, but, where you've polled all the elected officials, I get that, because there's times if I wanted to take another couple with me, I'd probably feel more comfortable not talking shop with the other elected officials that are there. So I'm okay either way. But so
Are you still gonna hold those 2 boxes for Flo, or are you gonna try to sell one of them anyway?
We have to hold, I feel comfortable, I gotta hold at least one of them open. We've talked about a couple different things, and we've received permission on a few before from the commission. Like, for some of our, full-time staff members, if they want to have a family member to come to a show, that's usually where we'll put those guys. And that's at my discretion, because oftentimes that is, and you guys know that have been to these shows with us, we're working 20 hours that day, you don't see family. And so we'll keep a box open for, in case somebody gets the double manifested seats and we got to move them. It's just really versatile. I don't see us ever shutting down or selling every box seat. I think having that is a good, at least having the one open is a good thing.
And I agree with that. I think that ought to be at your discretion for the 1 box, at least.
Okay.
But we can do, like I said, we can do whatever. Some shows, I'm just gonna tell you, the Old Dominion show, we're trying to get them to start releasing some of those holds that they've got. Because what'll happen typically is we will print off every hold that they have and give them to the tour manager day of show. So they'll have a stack of tickets. And then they might take 10 of them out and say, okay, sell the rest of these. And that's really hard for us to do the day of the show. Although we do have good walk-ups. Traditionally, we have a pretty decent walk-up, but that's hard for us to do. So we're trying to get them to release them. So it could be, at least in that one show, we might have to use boxes for elected officials. So.
And we'll work on the shows, but overall, I think the 4 tickets is the way everybody wanted to go.
So, status quo then.
Okay.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
thanks, Scott.
Shannon?
Good morning, Commissioners. Shanda Crystal, Chief Procurement Officer. I have 2 items before the board today. The first one is a potential signature on a change order with Headwaters for the YDC Event Center office. This change order is for sound insulation. And it would go in between the classrooms and the offices, as well as the 8 offices within YDC. It is not required by code, but it is requested due to the nature of operations in that YDC building, and it is recommended by our facilities director.
Daniel said that we ought to do it. I talked with Sharon.
I agree.
You gotta block off that school from the office. Plain and simple.
Yeah, my only question is, why didn't we think of that earlier?
It was.
So
They just didn't pick up on it when they,
Oh, all right.
yeah,
Well, then it's their fault, not ours.
that's what I said.
also correct.
They should cover it.
That is the path. They are asking for a change order. It was in the bid documents. It was written in the architectural drawings, spec'd out as that sound insulation. The subcontractor that did that portion of it missed it.
Tell them we'll split it then.
That'd be my,
Okay,
tell them we'll negotiate that,
I will take it back to Headwaters.
yeah, so.
Okay, the
If
second
it was in
item.
the specs, it's their fault not picking up on it, but
Yeah.
we probably should have too, but.
Okay. The second item I have is a quick procurement update. The only one on the dashboard that I have for you is that chip seal aggregate was due yesterday. We have received bids and those will be open at 10. I wanted to follow up on a couple of projects that we had ongoing. We have received the final invoice from CM Company for the 6th Street. That has been approved by our facilities director and our architect to go ahead and process. So their portion of that construction project will be complete and has been submitted to auditing for processing. We have received a final invoice from M2 Automation in regards to the metal detectors. Those are not quite in review as far as functional, so we're going to hold that final invoice just for a minute until we get everybody on the same page. So we just anticipate a week or so on that guy, but we have received that final invoice for the metal detectors.
So on that one, what's the projection on the front door? What are we waiting for?
Right, so the current holdup is the interference in between the metal detector and the intercom system. We have something that we're hoping is going to work, putting a metal box around it. For some reason, it's only affecting that ADA door, not the other two doors. So we're waiting for that equipment to arrive. We're hoping it is installed today, tomorrow, is what we're hoping, but we've got to get our hands on it.
6th Street.
Yeah, the ADA one is the one
I was
that's,
told that it'd be ready on Tuesday by security, and it hasn't been, so that's why I was wondering why we're waiting.
That is why, is the intercom system, the feedback that it's getting from that metal detector is causing problems. So we're hoping a metal box around the intercom system will block enough of that interference that it shouldn't give that feedback is what we're hoping.
Okay.
But we are waiting on equipment to arrive, but ProEdge is committed to getting it here just as soon as they can get their hands on it. For M2 Automations as well, their detention center intercom system is roughly about 50% complete, but that project is moving along. We do anticipate the annex improvements being completed in May, and then the tactical training remodel completed in June. So those projects will start closing up here and getting final numbers on them.
Thank you.
That is all I have for the board.
All right, thanks. I'm going to make a quick adjustment and do the claims agenda real quick, and then we can finish up with our discussion. On the claims agenda, we've got invoices, commissioners' reports, payroll report, alcohol licenses and permits, and that is it. Any discussion or questions on anything in those?
No. I'll make a motion, we approve all the items on the consent agenda, claims agenda.
We have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Do you guys want to start coming up then?
Does that guy need to sign this? I noticed he hadn't signed that one agreement. Well, the other guy, yeah, the guy was Scott. I noticed there's places on there, I wonder if he's...
How you doing, buddy? Hiding over there?
Wow, thank you.
Over there. We'll leave this one for now.
No, drink.
Open that door to.
I'm going to play Ringing on the Rosy here, so...
Do you want me to pass a couple of them out so you don't have to do them any loops?
Always got this. All right. We intended to get this to you before, but we were still doing all kinds of fun stuff last night.
Then you saw the email on this one. That's all stuff from public defense.
Thank you.
It just keeps coming, huh?
This is the last one. This is the last pass.
All right, this discussion is about the master plan for the road and bridge, planning and development, and corner area. The objective for today is to make a decision going forward, so that is the expectation that we'll come out of here with a plan going forward, because this does have some budget implications, should we choose to go forward with the discussion today. So with that, we've asked Hal to have a site survey done and provide some preliminary potential drawings as to what it could look like. And so with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Hal to go over his findings.
Thank you, Commissioner Hal Jensen, Planning Director. First, need to thank Kyle, Buddy, and Tori for their input and working on figuring out all the parts and pieces that would go into this. Originally, we were asked to do some quick down and dirty. We found, just from a quick standpoint, and I have a little bit more to substantiate now, about whether we should stay at the existing facility or potentially move out to the property that's owned off of the old highway towards Income. If we were to move the entire facility, it would be probably 3 times what the cost of this is right here. So just FYI, some of our preliminary kind of bore out after we got a little further into this calisthenic. So I would like to just start real quick. There's one that looks like an 8.5 by 11 and it folds out into a floor plan. Probably a second one down.
Second one down?
Yeah. And that's just basically the original, that's the concept plan about where we would go in regards to planning and development offices, GIS, Road and Bridge, with other support services of Road and Bridge attaching to the west wall and coming into the parking lot towards 5th Street is where our addition would go. And that's just so that we could figure out all of the general cost per square foot. We needed to know what it was that was needed when we started removing other facilities. So that's how it lays out. Been through this floor plan probably 3 times now with Kyle. We came up with the original concept, which is the offices and the hearing room, and then there's an infill which has the large parts, storage, car wash, new parts storage, office, break room, etc. for Road and Bridge, moving that function out of the existing building and moving it as part of the connector between the office function and the existing shop, okay? Which then frees up space for Kyle in his existing building. There's 2 items to be noted. First and foremost, when we go to the site plan, I contacted the city. Kyle and I had a discussion about what we thought made sense placing buildings. One of the problems is that the city, because they now have control of 5th Street, would not grant us another curb cut and approach unless we were to abandon one of the existing. That doesn't work for Road and Bridge from a large scale standpoint, so we stayed within the confines of what we got. We probably could have pushed that issue, but for planning purposes, I had that conversation and just chose to accept that conversation and move forward this direction. So that said, there's a couple of ideas. There's some elevations, just real quickly to show you what it could potentially look like. There's a center section with a high roof, which would be a higher volume so that we would have a little bit higher ceiling, as well as mechanical space above, over the hearing room. And then a second story on the back where we would place GIS across the back of the building with their functions on a very small mezzanine level. And then just other elevations that show you how that could potentially look if it all came together with that particular floor plan, okay? The reason that we take it to that point is to kind of get a feel for what potentially the cost per square foot would be based upon the type of construction and how complicated this construction would be. Okay, that one's set aside. The next one would be the other one that folds out, but it has a long leg that drops down, and this would be the coroner's office. I worked, gosh, Dory, when did we do this layout? We probably did this 6 months ago? Yeah. I've had this kicking back and forth, and Tori and I have been through this a couple of different times, and then it's been quiet since we've been doing other components about putting this together. This identifies all of the functions that goes on with Tori in the coroner's office and meets all of his respective needs. So there's some interesting functions that take place. I call it a garage, but in reality it's a storage for the trailer, and there are particular functions and tasks that I won't go into that the coroner does that potentially need to have some containment as he moves bodies around, etc. So anyway, that's why that garage component is on the end there. And
can I ask you to identify north? So that I
North,
can lay this out.
which one do you have?
Well, this is the one, the corners.
So real quickly, Commissioner, when we get to the site plan, you'll get it, but basically, north, it would look basically like that.
So the garage will be on the south.
Yeah. Okay?
Okay.
And that's FYI, there's a few things that aren't labeled, and there's a few things that aren't labeled north, south, east, and west until we get to the site plan, because it's going to, if we were to move forward, we have other decisions to make on where buildings would be placed and why and how.
So what about this one here?
So
We're assuming it's,
just hold that sheet parallel straight across, just like that.
so the existing shop is.
The existing
You
shop,
flip yours around, your South Fifth is right.
South Fifth is on your right-hand side. Due north is in your lap, down side of the sheet.
So this is north here then.
Yeah.
Yep, south side is where the car wash storage and the large parts.
Where it says shop, that's what's existing, and it's going to the west.
Okay,
of the
that's what I
shop.
thought. but-
Okay.
Okay. This guy's going.
All right, and then once again, so I chose to go down the path, had some conversations with Dan Kendall about some of his costs and how things have worked in Downey. Tori and I have looked at a particular building that was done very similar to this. It's taller, but it's a pre-engineered steel building. We were looking for a sequence of construction on how things have been discussed previously with Tori relative to budget that he currently has, budget going forward, how a shell could be built, then X amount of budget in another cycle, or our budget cycle could then go in and do interior finishes, and then other aspects like furnishings, etc. But I put it all together as just one great big giant kit and caboodle. We're going for the whole, all the parts and pieces so that you know what the potential costs of the whole thing would be. But that's pretty solid in regards to a pre-engineered steel building. I sent these drawings just to one steel building manufacturer and asked them what they thought the costs would be. They shot me some shell prices back. Then I got some interior finish prices from Dan. And that's what generated my cost per square foot on the budget worksheet. Okay, then the next packet that you've got are two different concepts, site concepts. And Commissioner Bullock, this will help you understand all of the parts and pieces and how they go together. So the top sheet is the second generation that I put together late yesterday and into last night, trying to come up with a couple of items that made sense. There's two items. One is from a logistical standpoint, the other is from an aesthetic standpoint. This is new to Kyle, so I'm open to have Kyle throw out his 2 cents, because I finished last night at about 10:30 and then came in this morning and did prints. I was hoping to have this in the packet, but my schedule has not been accommodating to get all of this put together, so I apologize. But you can see that if we were to take the corner and put it into that corner, into that, call it the north east corner, we would end up going in and doing some retaining wall and cut out that little bit of a hillside so that we could place that building. We have the opportunity to push it back even further, but that's just this is a starting point to understand the potentials of if it was located there. I like the idea that it has a direct relationship to the entrance. Our building is also now exposed. If the other buildings come down, then we have exposure so that when people ask where are you located, we say 5500 South 5th. You go in the entrance through the gate and make a hard 180-degree turn all the way around, and you'll see our building, that kind of, anyway. Those are the kinds of things that we've been discussing. That upper function of the existing Road and Bridge building, where Kyle and Buddy's offices are currently located, would then become another function that we have not identified at this point, but it becomes usable space for Kyle as he consolidates some of his other functions. Like, for instance, moving weed and mosquito. Where does weed and mosquitoes storage now go? Does it go in the old paint bay? Does it go in the, when we move parts out of there, do we move weed and mosquitoes storage of chemicals into the old parts storage area? There's a few things that we have not completely identified, but for the most part, we know we have not built obsolescence in all of these facilities. There's a little bit of growing room as opposed to we have a space for everybody and we're done. And then all of a sudden, within 5 to 7 years, as the county grows and there's more need for employees, et cetera, where are they going to go? So we've tried to identify that as well in this process. And so that you know, if you look down on each of these site plans, you'll have a red dashed rectangle along South Fifth, a blue dashed rectangle along South Fifth, and then, of course, along the approach is the blue dashed lines that denote the current Planning and Development Office. Okay? If you go to the next page, this was an exploration, and these were the first ideas as we came up with that site plan. And these are just different options of where the coroner could possibly be located. And we have a logistical issue if this was to go forward. Real quickly, to give you a sequence of events, the first thing that would take place is that the red dashed rectangle along South Fifth would be demolished. Okay? We would leave the corner in place along with the storage bay that houses the trailer. That leaves the corner functioning and in place while we build the Planning and Development and Road and Bridge addition, leaving Planning and Development functioning as well. Once Planning and Development Office was done, then Road and Bridge would move in, Planning and Development would move in, and then we would go and demolish the two blue squares, or the two blue rectangles, and put the corner down in that lower corner. Problem is that would put the construction of the coroner's office out anywhere from 2 to 2.5 years based upon budget cycles and construction timeframes, etc. And logistically, there's funds already committed to the coroner, and so the other concept that I came up with was then putting it in that parking lot area and having a little plaza, a little area between the existing Road and Bridge entrance and the new coroner's office location, still leaving the big loop drive all the way across the back of Road and Bridge. So those are the different concepts, ideas, locations of buildings. We know that the parts and pieces work. I have a meeting, if there's a potential that this moves forward, I have a tentative meeting next week with the building official in the city of Pocatello to review a couple of questions because I don't want to have to go back and retrofit and fire sprinkle the whole facility. And there's some options in the code that give us that, and I wanted to make sure that we were on the same page. That said, you then have a cost estimate. And I'm going to walk you through real quickly. On the upper tier of Road and Bridge, we would work with Kyle and Buddy to do a pre-engineered steel building, basically a lean-to, 3-sided. The back of it would face South Fifth and protect the equipment that's stored in those bays from the southwesterly predominant winds. And that is figured in there for $600,000. It's just 3-sided with a roof, no floor, isolated foundation, post footings, etc., no foundation wall, etc. So it's pretty inexpensive and pretty easy to put together. And that takes the function of tearing down the storage along South Fifth, okay? And that is basically $600,000. Construct a new Road and Bridge and Planning and Development offices with a hearing room and other support functions to Road and Bridge. There's 12,700 square feet at 275 a foot for about $3.5 million. So phase 2 would then be if we put the coroner's office, and the reason that I wrote this is because originally we had conversation about putting the coroner's office in that corner. Had some different conversations and came up with that second site plan. So phase 2 would be demo planning and development in the coroner's office and construct a new coroner's office in that corner, and that's 4,320 square feet at 210 for $907,000. Then you have furnishings for Road and Bridge and Planning and Development, which identifies things like office equipment or office furniture, conference room furniture, hearing room chairs, tables, lockers, things that go into break rooms, conference rooms. Spend some time on the internet looking through Amazon about what is a good quality chair without breaking the bank, came up with total numbers, etc., to come up with those numbers. And then the same for the corner. And GIS, there's a number plugged in there under our office for a few items that GIS would require. Our office currently has new desks, pretty much all new chairs that we would just move over. We also have, GIS has all new furniture, desks, etc., at all of their workspaces. Their needs in regards to new are very minimal, and so are ours. So there's where the numbers are. The total added up is that grand total of 5.1 million with a range from 4.6 plus or minus 10%, 4.6 to 5.6. And there you have it. That's everything that we've been working on together to come up with today's presentation.
Cool. Kyle?
It's said a lot. It's some of the things we're also looking at is some of the space we're shy on. That will correct a lot of that for the future growth for our departments, as well as the hearing room can be actually used for training. The problem is if I get like 45 people in to do a training and we don't have that kind of capacity. So it'll help in a lot of ways that way. It updates a lot of the things we're doing, like parts and stuff like that, and make a better flow for things like that. The one part that I really like is right now what we're seeing a little bit is we've got, since we just put different departments in and stuff, it's kind of, as he said, people come in and they're getting lost in there, or we're trying not to hit them and stuff with large equipment, where with this we can break that to where we keep the public at one spot and then employees on the other side. Is a big deal right now, because you see a lot coming into our office or to plannings and they kind of get lost trying to find where they need to go.
Okay.
Real quickly, the second site plan that I generated, just so that if you can, the stuff that's in the middle is the existing striping, so that would go away. We're trying to leave that middle as open as possible because Kyle has this function of the bays and some of the, he doesn't bring his largest vehicles necessarily through here. If he does, it's pretty much when we're not around. Most of it comes in from the back, but we've tried to identify all of the storage that he has for existing vehicles that are on the west side of the existing shop that are being staged for maintenance. They stage them along there, so that's part of where that parking down along 5th would be. Leaving the corner open because that just, aesthetically it makes sense. It's easier to maintain some of our water management and runoff. And then we have a nice large parking lot for public hearing events, etc. Gives us as much as we love having Tori out there by us, he wants to be about as autonomous as he possibly can. He wants to have some visibility, but he doesn't want a prominence per se. And so kind of sliding him back into that corner makes more sense. There's a little bit of a stigma that, oh no, it's the corner and there's dead bodies. But in reality, we don't ever see any of those kinds of functions. It comes and it goes. It's mostly people that are, I think mostly that are spooked by the title and the false idea that they might have of, ooh, what's in that building? So anyway.
So right now, are you on city sewer and water?
We are.
Yeah, so all this.
And real quickly, Commissioner, I haven't confirmed it, but we should not end up with any new sewer capacity and connection fees because we are doing like for like.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah, I'm not absolutely sure, but I'm more positive that we wouldn't have those fees based upon the fact that we currently have 2 buildings. Actually, we have 3 buildings, and for all intents and purposes, we would be 2 buildings. So anyway, I think that's part of my conversations for next week as well.
Okay.
Tori?
I like it. As we discussed, kind of in respect to Kyle and moving his larger equipment, I did like this piece of putting us up into the corner. They still have their thoroughway through there. But it does, it keeps us away, and I kind of gather from our previous conversations, that's kind of what we want, is to kind of have that separation. This allows us to function, this allows us, as we discussed previous, this would allow us to, it's open right now, we're not waiting on the timeline. It works out really nicely because we can start looking at what it costs to start a shell and potentially have at least a shell up with the, for lack of a better word, the garage area finished, which would allow us to have that capacity done, and we can operate the same as we move into the next budget year. We'll account for whatever the rest of the inside to get the office side of it done.
Also, moving it to the corner, it moves him out of the way, as he just described, but it allows us, if this would move forward, to basically run both projects concurrent. That would be, in all seriousness, it's probably going to put the biggest hamper on Kyle and how his area functions. But one of the items that Kyle and I talked about was that there was an impression that we would be replacing the entire facility and taking everything down. And we don't have any type of facility to give Kyle a backup to replace that existing shop. I mean, there's nowhere he could service anything, and that's why ultimately we came back and said, this is the best solution because it allows Kyle to continue to function and we don't lose shop. Anyway, long story short, it makes sense in regards to a sequencing process for construction. All of us that work out there together would have some serious, we'll probably end up, if this was to happen, we're going to end up parking up on that first tier and walking down the slope to get to the office to provide as much parking for patrons, et cetera, that come and go. So there's a few things that we know we can make work. But anyway, that said.
Buddy?
I like it. It checks all the boxes that I guess were our concerns with adding a car wash, which is a big thing for those trucks. You guys know how expensive they are, and getting them neutralized and all the salt off them more often in the winter will be really good for our operation. The bigger parts room is going to be essential. That parts room right now is kind of a mess. It's so tight and congested in there that'll help a lot. And then adding, as we get more female workers and all that, having an area for them to be able to have their own bathroom and locker room will be nice as well. So, and then as Kyle said, the hearing room, that'll be great. So.
Well, like right now, we don't have any kind of locker room, but we've switched to where our mechanics wear clothing so they change out, but they're just like walking in the bathroom and standing there and changing out of their clothes and stuff. We had a female mechanic at one time. We don't at the moment, but then what do we do in them situations? And there's just a few things like that that'll make that kind of like the parts in that shop. We've got 660 something pieces of equipment that run through that every day, or not every day, but I mean that we're trying to work with and stuff, and so it's busy. And this way, that was the only thing that we had found, is if we still looked at putting Tori in the corner, where down by the 5th Street, everything works for us. While we're building, we still can function. With him, if we put it back in about the exact spot he's in, we have that time frame, as was said, that what do you do? So there is some different options there, but most of the way we're trying to figure it out is we wouldn't stop any operation. We'd be functioning at full speed while we were doing it.
And real quickly, so that you know, the hearing room would hold 128 people.
Wow. Okay. All right, let's put this on pause for just a minute. We got to do a quick bid opening, and then we'll come back, and that'll give us a minute to put some questions together and grill you. What are you laughing for, buddy?
Just waiting for it.
You better be.
All right, 10 a.m., time for the bid opening. So this is an invitation to bid on the supply the 3/8 chip seal aggregate material through the end of the calendar year 2025. No addendums have been issued, no bid bond was required. We will open the bids here in just a minute, and as a reminder, reading the bid does not confirm the bid is responsive. Further review will be performed to ensure each bid meets all requirements. Once the bids have been read, we will make a motion to accept the bids and take them under advisement, and then all contractors will receive notification once the project has been awarded. Ms. Crystal.
Commissioner, so we have received one bid for this project, and it is a sealed bid. With your permission, I will unseal those.
Please do.
Sorry, I clicked on the wrong place. I'm in the right place now. Commissioner Hoffa, if you'll refresh your screen, we should be able to see those. We did ask for 4 different submissions. It'll open an Excel sheet for you as you're getting that downloaded. It's going to ask for a very specific spec'd out material and what it is that to be delivered and if we pick it up. And then we did leave it open. We found a good place last year where they were able to rely on their subject matter experts, those contractors, be able to offer up and say, well, we have this available, will it work for your specs? The Road and Bridge Department goes out and reviews that and makes sure it meets all of our requirements. If it does, we're able to accept that, and we were able to receive a substantial savings last year in accepting an alternative material. So those are the 2 other ones. If they would like to submit an alternative material price delivered, and then if we pick it up, are the 4 things we've been asked for.
We have one bid from Sunrock, doing business as DePatco, excuse me. So I open up the spreadsheet and there are 4 options. Option number 1. Do you need me to read? Okay, here we
That
go.
brief description.
Yeah, option number 1 is aggregate material, 5.2 specifications delivered by August 1st. All of these are for 10,000 tons, and it is $39.07 per ton, I'm assuming, unit
Sorry,
price?
70 cents.
70 cents, sorry. Option 2, aggregate material, 5.2 specifications, pick up by Bannock County by August 1st. Again, 10,000 tons, that's $27.50. Option 3, aggregate material, 5.3 alternative specs delivered by August 1st. Again, 10,000 tons, $33.20. And option 4, Bannock County picking up the material, 10,000 tons, and that is $21 even. That is our bids. Accept a motion to accept those
I will make that motion. We accept the bid that's presented
and take them under advisement.
and take them under advisement for legal and bid compliance.
We have a motion. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The next piece of that puzzle, then, Road and Bridge will reach out to the company to verify what they have as those alternative specs and see if it'll fit for Bannock County, and then we'll bring a recommendation to award back before the board.
Okay, thank you.
And these are not coming from any pit that has a cease and desist on.
That's cities that do that.
All right, back to the planning discussion. Commissioner Mulder, questions?
A couple. Have we talked with money at all?
That's why this discussion is today, because it will have some budget implications depending on which direction we decide to go. But Tori has 300,000.
300,000, that's
This
been there
year's
for
budget.
a while. But that's my only question is, okay, where are we at with reserves? So I like moving forward. It's a good plan. But where's our reserves? Where's the funds coming from? That's,
One of the things that I was thinking about is with our road budget plan, we go for 6 years and then we have a break year that we just go completely with gravel road work, shoulder work, stuff like that. That keeps us in our 7-year plan. I just had put it in the plan as it went over here, but if we decided to change that and move that year up, and so we go that summer with doing this gravel work or work on this stuff, that would save us around 2.2 million.
well, after the meeting we was at Tuesday, it sounds like the road funds are gonna be being cut. So, that's a concern too.
A little bit. Ken?
My question of it is, what, under the best conditions, what are time period? 3 years? You mentioned that you were gonna do it in phases. Part of it in actually this current year, which is the new building up here for the corner, right?
This, if we started this with this plan, this would allow me to start,
So,
and they could run.
so that's gonna be part of this current year's budget then? Okay, so beyond that, what are we looking at? Two other budget periods to get this thing finished?
Potentially, yes.
So the 26 and the 27. So I guess that's what, I'm the same question is, what's the financial impact on, next year, 26, which is we're looking at right now.
Correct.
That's what I'd like to do is see how it's, this,
Well, that was the question for today, number one.
Yeah.
Do we want to go forward with this? Did we like the plan? If
Yep.
so, then phase 2 is sit down with Christie and start talking budget and planning that way. So this is before we burned a lot of time on the auditors.
right.
And
Before we sign any contracts, we're gonna know.
Well, and that's why I'd like to see it, this is for next year and then the year
If it was in a
27.
perfect world, you could start demoing out this October, have everything demoed that we needed to. Like I said, that could start going right now, but the other stuff could be demoed out and start the road and bridge planning, building next spring. And then I don't know what you would think on building time that would be, so that'd be building all through 26, the summer of 26, and probably in the fall in budget 27 would be your finishing with your furnishings. So it would be 2 budget years, but you'd be looking at the end of FY 20, or calendar year 26.
Because when we'd originally talked, we talked about maybe saving up for 2, maybe 3 budget cycles to do this, but this plan, maybe we don't have to save, maybe we
Yeah.
have some other options for that.
I think that the 600,000 for the building up on top, you're still gonna have to do it before you start demolishing your other building, or you're not? That's where all this stuff's going, is up there.
Yeah.
We gotta have it under protection for the winter. So
And that was my next question is,
that's gotta be in this first phase.
So
that
it's-
almost
so
gotta
if
be
it-
happening the same time as.
Well, it could start not, if we got the work done we needed to beforehand to where it could start money-wise in October of 26's budget, they could be building that as we're demoing.
Okay, how's this going to interrupt business as usual as we have it right now?
As long as we do it this way, it's not going to. Besides some inconvenience for employees and different things, because we'll have to make room for these things going on, so we'll have to push parking and vehicles
So-
into different areas.
So when would you be tearing down the existing planning and zoning office?
That would not be until we were completed with the new structure,
Not
the new
until-
building.
Not
Completely?
until 27.
Okay, so that would be the final phase then, is taking down that corner that we're using right now for everybody.
Yes.
That was my concern of, we still
Yeah,
gotta operate.
once we're all moved in, then we will have to do the same thing again. We'll have to kind of
Stuff in the blue.
relocate people parking and stuff while we pull that section out.
Okay. And your existing building right now would remain intact?
Yes,
So that's the only building that would remain intact there?
yes, that in the shop, yes.
Okay. Okay, I got a picture of it now, so.
And on that building, we've been talking about a new roof and stuff. None of that's included in this.
It's already
No,
included in his budget for this year.
But we wouldn't, why would we do a new roof? Are we,
Well, it's still
it's
gonna be
over,
there.
it's,
That's staying.
because all of that's
Oh.
staying.
all right, I was thinking we were redoing.
Yeah, so
all
that's
that.
already in ours for this year doing the roof. We just haven't decided
We were
and
waiting
got
for
and
this.
moved forward
Okay.
with Shanda with anything because we didn't know for sure.
So are you abutting right up next to the existing building? Are you overlapping any at all?
It'll just go right up against it.
No breezeway between it? It will just,
Just punch a hole in it.
okay.
No,
Tie in.
We're gonna use the existing wall, the existing west wall of the shop
Okay.
as our attachment. And because it's a 10-inch concrete masonry fully grouted, I can classify that as a 4-hour fire rated wall and we can attach and go and
Some new doorways going through.
so
there.
yeah, we'll just cut a doorway through the concrete and make that the entrance back and forth.
I like the concept. If we could just put it, like you say, just give us an idea of how we can defend that financially, and then we'll have to, once we do that, then we can visit with Christie and see how we pay for it. So. You guys all concur this is the answer?
I think this is our best for all of us involved. Like I say, if I wanted scenery, I like the spot down on Old Highway 91, but you start to tear down a shop and rebuild a shop, you're gonna be a lot, triple.
Well, the location is where I'd like it because of the county, because of the sheriff's department, and because of, everything's right here for transferring, not having to drive 10 miles. Get that, so-
And I think it helps us utilize space better than what we are now.
There's enough room up on the hill to accommodate everything you need to?
Yeah, the shed we have and everything, that would work just fine. We're still looking at, we've had some difference. The solid waste is doing a new scale house. And we used to have that whole lower compound for road and bridge and weed. So we're kind of like shifting that to them. And so we're cleaning that out. And so we're kind of trying to figure out where all these things go and where some room is for now until we get something more concrete figured out. But I think we're doing okay.
And this takes care of everybody's capital for the next 5 years out of every department out there. I mean, you've been asking for a car wash for 6 years since I've been here. It's never made it through it, but I mean, because you're looking at the next 5 years worth of budgets, it
One
should
of
be
the-
covered in here somehow.
One of the parts that we're trying to correct too is, and that's kind of on the solid waste also, is having an environmentally friendly way to clean our equipment.
Right.
And we just haven't ever got to that part.
I'm just asking the question, how long in the future have you thought? This is a big
facility
ask.
for me should every bit of 20 years and beyond, as far as I can see. This accounts for growth, this accounts for what we need to do now. As we've discussed, once this is completed, realistically, like ongoing operational costs for the facility will it'll be sixes as far as what we're paying now versus what we would be paying in the new facility. The difference is this facility allows us to be 100% self-sufficient for everything that we're charged with doing.
Where is Wes? In all
There's
this.
there's another option for Wes. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
One other thing.
We already shot down one.
Yeah.
One other
We've got a thought for him.
thing I'd like to bring up is with the new plans for the scale house at the landfill, how that's set up, if you look at that plans, it puts that weed building, there's a 3-bay weed building in there. It would be better utilized by the landfill, and for them to, with this move, you'll have that building available. Whether that's something it was paid through weed funds, if that can be part of that solid waste project as they're doing the scale house, that we say at some point when we can or whatever, that they, whatever the value of that or whatever you come up
Holiday spray.
is.
When you say it could be better used by the landfill, what do you mean? How
Well-
would they use it better?
Well, because if we move them, that you got a building there. Right now, with them still in there, the weed, once this gets built, they're like right in the middle of all the new stuff that's going on with the new scales. So, these guys, or the people, traffic going to the weed, the public and all that, they're gonna have to go through scales. The weed guys are gonna have to go back and forth through the scales system. It's, yeah, it's not,
Not any more congestion than it is right
it's,
now.
yeah, it makes that kind of congested, and then they have to go through, if you have a lineup waiting to go onto the scale, then we got a weed truck sitting in that line. But then they don't have, the landfill doesn't have any heated bays at this point in time either, so that gets, where I say it gives some better options for them to be able to utilize it.
Water trucks and power washers and all their stuff like that would be perfect in there. There is a pull-through bay too, so potentially he could move the hazardous waste days in that building also. So you could just pull a guy right into the building and right out the backside.
It's just that they're kind of confined. When they first did that, they put the offices and everything right in that canyon, and there's nowhere to change. And if water treatments and things like that if something else different comes up and they need more space to treat that water or anything like that, you've kind of ran out of room. So by moving that scale house and stuff down, that gives you that whole flat area to be able to, however they want to utilize that.
Okay. Well, at this stage, from what I'm hearing, our best bet is to schedule a meeting maybe next Thursday with auditing Christie, so we can talk about a plan and have a better timeline for everything, and go from there based on information presented today. Does that seem appropriate?
Yeah, and I think it still gives Hal the opportunity to talk with the city of Pocatello and
Okay.
find out if there's any more information that we need to have at that time.
I didn't get a chance to talk with Merrill. He was on vacation this week, and I had not thought about it until Monday of this week. And when I reached out, he was not available, so
Okay.
pushed it to next week.
You all right with that, if we do something like that?
Yeah, and my next 2 Thursdays are opened up.
Okay.
As far as in the afternoons, I have
Okay, well,
nothing
we'll just
in
do
the
it.
afternoon, so,
Let's do another morning like we did here.
yeah, it is
At the
works here,
business
but,
meeting.
yeah, we're
Does
closed
that
the
work with our
next 2.
schedule?
The afternoon next Thursday will work.
Yeah,
Okay.
both the next 2 Thursdays opens up for me.
Okay, well, then that's our plan. We'll let Hal finish that.
Is-
We'll move forward with this. Great work, all of you. Good job.
Is there something else out there that we haven't thought about? To think about that, parking, for instance, over the next, if there's something we need to do with parking, especially with planning and zoning or whatever. That's a concern of mine too, that we need to address. Maybe our neighbor to the north to see if we could, rent some parking over there short-term or whatever it is, because
And even to the south between
the Kirkhams.
the two county,
I mean, we may need, because if you've got crews in there with all their outfits for these buildings or whatever, about parking may need to be a major concern if you got planning and zoning meetings or whatever it is, and we've got equipment all over that place.
I think we'll be able to, for like the public end of it, if we rope off the section that they're already utilizing, that they swing around and come in, we'll still have enough room that we can do a kind of a barrier for the work zone and
Okay.
stay out of their way while that's going on.
Al, would you talk with Adam about making sure that meeting room is up to speed with the technology and everything, so
Yep.
you can do remotes and
That's
that?
all,
So it can be a training room as well, like Kyle talks about?
yep, that's all in the budget.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nope. Comments, concerns?